wanted to talk about today a little bit, and then we're going to be doing Tara Mantra at the end. Kathy has, it's a nephew, Kathy?
A great nephew. He's 6 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, who has leukemia. So we're going to be doing Tara Mantra for him and for anybody else that you'd like to add. So at the end. Anyway, so back to the subject of today's talk, which is spiritual ecstasy. Margaret's laughing. Anyway, so I'm going to share what I think the Zen perspective is on spiritual ecstasy. Firstly, it's something that happens sometimes. Sometimes people have Kensho experiences, mostly in that context, that are wonderful, okay? And they can be very powerful. They can be transformational if they are powerful enough. And again, and they feel very good. I don't want to diminish that. But from Zen perspective, we kind of see that as a problem. Something that feels that good is potentially dangerous because it can become addictive. We can chase it. We can seek it out. We can want it. We can be frustrated and upset when one of the things about kenshos and about most of these experiences is that they are spontaneous. They come when they come. We have very little control over that, maybe no control over that. And so chasing them is essentially utterly futile. But that doesn't mean we may not be tempted to try because they are powerful and they are pleasant and so on and so forth. But then we say, no, you have the experience, great, get over it, let it go. It's just another thing. And it's another thing that can really derail our practice if we become enamored of it. I don't know how much further I want to go in that direction, but beyond saying that, and I think I can see in people's practice, and as I talk to people in Daishan, it's like, people are like really curious, right? There's a lot of curiosity about Kensho. What's it like? What's it, so on and so forth. A lot of curiosity about when's it going to happen for me? Is it going to happen for me? And so on and so forth. And well, I can't guarantee Kensho for all, unless you go to my website and enroll in my special Kensho Dharma program, which it's 10,000 a year, but I will guarantee the Kensho. No, but other than that, there are no guarantees. But I would say as close to a guarantee as I come, if you practice with sincerity, it will happen. When? No idea. How? No idea. It's almost in my view, it's almost an inevitable outcome of practice. But at the same time, we can't chase it. We can't pursue it. It's like a paradox, right? That paradox is constantly there in Zazen. If you're kind of trying to go deeper, you can't go deeper. You can only go deeper by not trying to go deeper. Okay. If you're desiring to have some kind of an experience, you won't have the experience. Only by consistent, sincere practice. And furthermore, so there's different views on this. The Rinzai Zen differs on this a lot from Soto Zen. Okay. In Rinzai Zen, they actively pursue Kensho, very actively. And you may have read these descriptions of students at retreats sitting up all night outdoors, mooing at the top of their lungs in the hope that that's, other than competing with the cows nearby, not the same kind of moo, but in the hope that that's going to trigger a Kensho. Sometimes it does. And those Kenshos are premature and shallow. And almost, as far as I'm concerned, almost no value, worse than no value, because I've seen it where people then kind of think like, oh, I've made it, and but they don't have transformative character, and what you hope for is when Kensho comes, it will be transformative. You will see the universe in a whole new way. So that's the good news. Now the bad news. In Zen, we say that once that happens, you have to get rid of it. Absolutely get rid of it. You can't hold on to a shred of whatever it is you realize. We talk about ascending the mountain and descending the mountain, okay? And so ascending the mountain is practiced till we have sometimes, well, let's get into this little rabbit hole here. So there's the term which you may have heard, Dai Kensho, which means great Kensho, which is the great awakening. The whole world is transformed, and so on and so forth. Now, sometimes people have that Dai Kensho. But my teacher, Margaret, believed, and I believe that she does, that more often than not, people have a series of smaller awakenings. End result is the same, but one occurs maybe over a period of time, over a couple of years, and the other appears fairly suddenly. Same outcome. But I believe that Dai Kensho is fairly rare. Now, that said, years ago, Kaplo Roshi wrote a little book where he documented a series of these Dai Kensho experiences that students of his had. And there were teachers that said that he set Zen back 20 years by doing that. And I understand that perspective, because it was almost impossible to read that and not get attached. I want that. Oh my God, that sort of thing. And so many people were then chasing Kensho because of reading. What was it? 3 Pillars of Zen that he had that in? Yeah. So my best advice is don't chase Kensho. It will come to you. Let it come to you. And then when it comes to you, get rid of it. Yeah, I worked for 15 years and then get rid of it. But you will be transformed by it, but you will not be transfixed by it. That's the important quality. It's said that a Zen adept is a completely ordinary person. You will never read, I don't think, when I say never, but I think never is fair, about Zen teachers or Zen adepts doing great magical feats. You can read that about Hindus and other um, other religions, but in Zen we avoid that. We don't want that. We don't, is it possible? Well, I imagine there are certainly teachers in the past that were able to could do extraordinary things, but in Zen, don't touch it. Another rabbit hole for attachment, or another rabbit hole for the ego. Oh, I can do magic. I can heal people. I can, And so I would say, even if a Zen adept can do those things, they wouldn't let anybody else know. It's kind of dangerous territory. Why don't I pause there and see what questions or thoughts you have?
Peter, it's Jim. Everything you're saying makes sense to me. It resonates with me. My question is, why this topic of conversation today? Just out of curiosity.
Hmm. I don't. As often my topics come up because I was thinking about it this week, and I don't think anything more than that. But it's something that's important. I think it's something that we kind of need to visit periodically.
Yeah,
And I guess the other side of that, Jim, is I do see that tension in Daishan with folks occasionally. That it's kind of like, yeah, I don't want that, but how do I get that? It's a little bit of that kind of dynamic, and so
I understand.
it's not bad, it's not wrong, but it's not the best spirit for us to have in practice. We're gaining nothing. The Zen adepts of the past had nothing, almost literally. They lived in their little shack or their little cabin or whatever it was, and they just possessions were unimportant to them, but it's also spiritual possessions. They gave it all away. And I think that's the other aspect. Whatever we do, whatever way that we are transformed, that's where the Bodhisattva vow comes in. In any respect that we are better human beings, we need to give that away to others. We need to use it for the benefit of others.
Thank you.
It reminds me a little bit. I haven't had one of these like big Kensho experiences, but it reminds me a little bit. It sounds a little bit like joy. Years ago, I read C.S. Lewis's book "Surprised by Joy," and I have had surprises by joy. I've been surprised by joy. And joy isn't something that I can look for or plan for or anything else. It's just something that happens. And when I'm talking and to my recovering people, talking about uh, that kind of thing, I talk about that. I talk about how we cannot look for, we don't know I mean, I didn't know what joy was until I had it. and and so I'm just saying, it just reminds me a little bit of that. It's not, I mean, we can't I know that I can't pursue happiness, that I can't pursue joy. Um, um, yeah, it just comes when it comes. So I can accept that about a Ken show experience. Huh.
The best description of Kensho that I know of is from Dogen. Very succinct. Body and mind falling away. When you have that experience, it is not ambiguous. You will know it. Well, you won't know it, but you won't have a body or a mind. Ooh, okay. It's pretty, it's pretty clear and dramatic. As I said, the only way we can sort of provoke it is just through consistent, sincere practice. And then it comes, and then it goes away. And then, it's kind of like, okay, now what? That's the old chop wood, carry water thing. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. And if you want to do that, come here because I've got plenty of wood and water for you to work on. So again, there's this kind of thing. It's like this, there's this extraordinary experience, and it's absolutely ordinary, and our lives afterwards need to be ordinary. And so you can see, as I've over the years I've looked, every so often I see someone who's a charlatan who probably had a clear glimpse like that and just assumed that because of that they were special, that they weren't somewhere where they were getting training from a teacher, and so their ego just said, whoa, I'm godlike now, I'm special, and then launched into teaching when they had really no understanding of the implications of their experience. So you, we see that. I've seen that happen. And that's why it's so important to work with a teacher who is from an established lineage, because any teacher with an established lineage would not allow that. Um, but people who are on their own, sometimes people have these experiences spontaneously, frankly. You don't, sometimes it happens, you don't have to have trained at all. And that's really dangerous because your ego is totally unprepared and totally uses it as an enhancement. And I think you're right, Kathy. Even though joy is an emotion, it is a very different thing. It's that same kind of thing. You can't wake up in the morning and there it is. It happens when it happens. Jim, are you in Gosh Show because you want to speak or no? So, how about those Patriots?
Are they winning? Playing right now.
Are they playing right now and we're here? Oh, then it's early. They don't play this early, do they?
They're playing in London today.
That's what I was just going to say. Maybe they're in Europe. And
Well, on the same theme, there's something I read a long time ago, a phrase that stuck in my mind when I was quite young, which was happiness has to be tricked. And I like the phrase. It has a little more intentionality, I think, than we would want here. But it was a good lesson in that you prepare your life and it happens. That's what I got out of that.
it's interesting. Happiness is something I've given a lot of thought to. And what is happiness? Why are we happy or not? And the Dalai Lama says that that is the universal human desire that all people in all cultures want to be happy. What is happiness? That's a question.
I knew I was wandering into dangerous water by, by bringing that up.
Yeah, the sharks are coming further north every year.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ironically enough, one of the aspects of happiness is not wanting, not grasping, but it does seem to be related to um, a kind of wanting for all. So it's it
Peter, it's actually an interesting topic because I'm writing a paper right now examining um, this concept called gross national happiness, which is something they measure in Bhutan. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but um, and the paper's about what would happen if the United States adopted this measure of gross national happiness versus gross national product or gross domestic product. Anyway, the way Bhutan has measured it is they've articulated happiness as being more like well-being, if that makes sense to people. Well-being is kind of difficult to define as well, but um, anyway, the paper has generated a lot of interest among my classmates and my professors because everybody wants to be happy, but nobody really knows what it is, which is, I guess, the topic of conversation here this morning.
Yeah, it's a tricky subject. I think, so we have this again, we have on one hand the notion that Dalai Lama is putting out everybody wants to be happy. But I think you're right. I think most of us cannot define what happiness is. We may not even recognize it when we're experiencing it. And I've wrestled with this some, and I decided that the right word is not happiness. Well, it's not the right word, but the right experience is not happiness, but fulfillment. If we are fulfilled, if we have a life that's rich with meaningful activities and meaningful relationships, My perspective is that's as good as it gets. And we might say that's happiness. But I tend to see it relationally, and I tend to see it in terms of that word being fulfilled as human beings. If, we always have that sort of measure of like when I'm on my deathbed. Well, on my deathbed, am I going to remember those moments that I was happy? Or am I going to remember those things that fulfilled me, those meaningful relationships, those meaningful tasks, um, and ways in which I interacted in life? Or I might just be high on morphine and not give a shit. But and I might also throw out the possibility that happiness is another high that we can chase. Right. Fulfillment is our state of being. Happiness is, your birthday party. It's like, and it's often quite insubstantial. Fulfillment is a quality of the way that we're living our lives, of our relationships, of our relations to the world. And I think that more substantial thing, right now it's pretty darn hard to be happy. As we're approaching November 5th, there's so much anxiety, so much concern about the future, most of it legitimate. So happiness as a filter may fail us almost completely. It may be almost impossible to be happy now, but it's possible to be fulfilled, to be doing meaningful things for others, living in connection with others, being here in the Sangha with each other. In fact, we may be concerned and fearful, but if we are concerned and fearful with others, that's healing and transformative. If we're alone, If we're not in connection, if we're not in relationship, it's simply terrifying. You know that there's that thing that's attributed, I guess, to Margaret Mead. At the beginning of human civilization occurred at the moment that they found a healed bone. Because prior to having a human community, if you broke your leg or something, you just died. But once there was a human community that was linked, that was caring for one another, then somebody took care of you and mended your leg and fed you and so on and so forth until you were well enough to go out and feed yourself again. That's profound, actually. The ability to care for one another and the compassion to do that. Which is something that is so missing now, right? That's the ingredient that's missing in our world today. If I live in a world that's just about me, about what I need, what I want, and so on and so forth, and screw you. And that's the way a lot of people are thinking these days. Then we're losing that essential bond that makes us humans. The bond of caring, the bond of compassion. And that's why it's so important that we cultivate it all that we can. It is fundamental. Without that, you're just my enemy. You're just somebody I'm competing with for food or property or whatever the thing is. You're just an adversary. And that's what's happening in the world today. That's why it is so adversarial. You got to get out there and fix those broken bones. It's quiet. I'm not going to let Susan have any more days off. She's such a good conversation starter. Okay, so we've covered a few different pieces of ground today. Any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say before we start the Tara mantra that my little great nephew Jude, who's just been diagnosed with leukemia, I had already had a reservation to leave Friday to go be with them because I spend quite a bit of time with my niece and her little boys. And so I'm leaving Friday to go and be with them. I won't be here next Sunday, but thank you all for doing this mantra. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And one more thing before that brings up one more thing mentioned before we do it. I won't be here next week. I'm going down to visit my son in Florida, in Orlando, and but Gary and Deborah have promised a Dharma talk that will shake the mountains and divert the rivers in their course. No, they haven't promised that, but they will be leading discussion. Okay.
Peter, and related to that, Dysons for the week are being
Oh yeah, thank you. I think I mentioned it to almost everybody on last Thursday. Wednesday, Dysons will be as usual, but Thursday there'll be no Dysons because I'll be in the air. So okay. Om Tare Tutare Turi Svaha. 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 Om Tare Tutare Turi Swaha. 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 Om Tare Tutare Turi Swaha.